The issue that I looked at in my research was the question of security sector reform and the role of traditional actors in these reform processes. There's a whole body of literature that talks about how SSR ignores local actors at their peril. In Sierra Leone, however, local actors are involved. You have chiefs, you have local courts that have all been incorporated in the state's attempts to formalize security. Nevertheless, although they have been brought in, we still have women who are not receiving adequate justice for crimes committed against them. So I take these questions about the need to incorporate local actors and the need for hybridization. I take these concepts and apply them to the role of secret societies in providing security for women in Sierra Leone. I did my research using a variety of mechanisms. First, I conducted background research. I looked at, I reviewed policies around security provision. I also reviewed NGO documents. I also conducted primary research. I conducted key informant interviews as well as focus group discussions, and I held key informant interviews with a range of actors. I talked to CSOs, civil society organization leaders, non-governmental organization leaders, INGO leaders, donors, women's civil society organizations in Sierra Leone, so a range of actors that were involved in this. I also, of course, spoke with secret society members. I spoke with SOWAs who are involved in who are the key ones in the initiation rites, as well as ordinary women in Sierra Leone. I also spoke with men as well in the focus group discussions. Interviews were held in 10 out of the 14 districts. The FGDs were held in 10 out of 14 districts, and then key informant interviews were largely held in Freetown. Well, what I learned, there are a variety of things that this research showed me. First is this argument about the need to involve more traditional actors and the need for hybridity. In Sierra Leone, as I mentioned, we do have informal actors that have been given the power of the state in provision of justice. However, their roles are curtailed. So even though they have the power to intervene, there's a threshold on what they can do. They can intervene in some cases and not others. For example, in cases of murder or rape, they're not supposed to intervene in these areas. We also learned that we have a strong body of laws in Sierra Leone that are meant to support women. In practice, however, this isn't working. The curtailment of traditional systems of governance when it comes to women's access to justice, the many laws that we have to safeguard women's roles is not leading to a more improved security environment for women. So what do we do? Can secret society members play a role? Yes, they can, but we cannot simply just assume that hybridity is the way. They can play a role, but we have to be more specific about what kind of role they can play. Presently, they don't really do much when it comes to helping women access justice for crimes, for SGBV crimes. However, CSO, civil society organizations, have made the point that they need assistance in helping women navigate through the formal system, because there's a formal system in place which, although it's not working effectively, is what people are supposed to use. So one of the things we learned is that possibly we can work with women's secret society members to help to assist them in navigating access to justice for women. I think the policy implications are very closely related to what I just mentioned about what we've learned. Women's secret society members have a strong presence in all communities in Sierra Leone. They are revered, to a certain extent they are feared. However, they're currently not involved when it comes to discussions about what to do in helping women access justice. They're not one of the bodies that have been targeted for reform. one of the policy implications of this research is that there could be more concerted outreach to women secret society members, helping them to understand what the current laws are about women, about SGBV against women, helping them to understand the formal systems in place that are supposed to help women access justice, and then support provided to them to help women to navigate these avenues. The other policy implication, though, is that from the research we understand that although formal systems are in place, although there has been reform, so-called reform of the police sector, of the courts, these are also still not functioning well. So rather than simply targeting non-formal, traditional sources of assistance, we also need to work with formal systems. We need to do a better job in terms of equipping the family support unit, in terms of equipping the police sector, in terms of making sure courts meet regularly, cases aren't adjourned, that we have more lawyers. So you cannot simply talk about bringing in the informal sector and working with them without also acknowledging that there's a need to strengthen the formal also. What next would be, I think, transitioning into bringing women, into bringing secret society members into the discussion about helping women access justice. It's a larger question of security, but here we're looking at human security, which tends to be ignored when we're looking at security sector reform. So I would say next is targeting these women, next is approaching them, next is working with them, training them, speaking with them. And in addition to that, continually working on changing our frame, the ways in which we perceive women. In order really for something to happen whereby SGBV crimes go down, we have to really interrogate the reasons behind why they're so high in the first place. And part of that comes from the marginalization of women, from the ways in which women are perceived, from the lower, women are not seen as equal to men. And these perspectives, these cultural attitudes need to be questioned, need to be interrogated, and need to be dealt with. This is something secret society members, one of the concerns that people had is that they operate within a very stereotypical perception of what women's roles are. And this perception is not one that would necessarily question violence against women. So these are all issues that we need to take into account and change before we can actually see change happen. Thank you.